In the cosmic scheme of billions of years, a human life is just a flash.
I don't consider age. It's just a number.
My number is 83. In fact, I've been hosting The Nature of Things for 40 years, almost half of my life. We have a sense of time. I'm not ashamed to admit that I am now officially old. Whoa! However, I have to say, all things considered, I'm in reasonable shape.
What we want you to do is to live longer and live better and live more.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want. So I'm putting my body and mind to the test to see if I'm still here because of the choices I've made. Always glad to hear that. Or if I've just been blessed with good genes. So I'm going to meet some people who will help me try to achieve that. I want to know what's working.
Holy cow.
What's not.
I love a challenge. Let's do it.
What I can do, and probably should have done, to age well. Right from the get-go, the very moment a life begins, we are aging. And in the beginning, it's all good. We grow, get stronger, and we hope get a little smarter as we develop into adults. Then there's a turning point. Everything starts to go in the opposite direction. That's just the nature of things. And while we certainly can't stop the process, there's plenty we can do to stay healthy and age well. At last, I get to play the role I was born to play, the Karate Kid. Hey, Paul, I thought everybody was going to get dressed up like me. What's going on here?
David, settle down.
I'm not going to argue with this guy. Paul Zer is a sensei and black belt in 3 different martial arts. And he's a neuroscientist who is studying seniors and the effects of physical movement on the brain.
And remember, good balance feeling from side to side. And
I've noticed that my balance is not what it used to be. So I've come to Paul's class here at the University of Victoria. Many of the participants volunteered to become part of Paul's research.
Martial arts, really, if you get right down to it, what is it as a thing, like an actual entity? It's balance and coordination training. And what do we worry about as folks get older? We worry about their balance and their coordination.
As we get older, our bones tend to weaken and muscles shrink, affecting coordination and balance, which could explain why 4 out of 5 injury hospitalizations involving seniors are because of a fall.
And if you can get yourself more comfortable with just feeling your body and understanding what this means and realizing that just because you're shifting your weight doesn't mean you have to fall. And I think that's where it really can have an impact in real life.
I realize that the kind of exercises I do, I don't have to think about it. I just get on a machine and pump away till the heart gets up and so on. But what karate did, that little exercise there, is you're having to think. Like, this is a very important part of the whole physical routine.
Yeah. When folks talk about the kind of clarifying focus you get from doing these kinds of activities, because the attention has to be there, that spills over into the rest of your life.
There you have it. Exercise is not only good for the body, it's also good for the brain. And that may help prevent falls, because executing complex moves results in sharper concentration and focus.
I'm always attempting to think about way more things than I can manage. My breathing, right hand, left hand, which foot, where am I supposed to be looking? And I enjoy that.
I think it's heightened my awareness of the choice to stop and focus. And it feels so much better to do one thing at a time. Oh my, I love it.
You think of karate as a very violent kind of sport, and something you hardly think of as something for an elder to do. And I was surprised that his class, his group of elders, responded the way they did, that they could improve the quality of their bodies and their movement. Of course, any complex movement would have similar benefits for the brain. The fact is, our balance changes as we age. So what can we do to prevent falls? To find out, I've come to Baycrest Health Sciences in Toronto.
What we're going to start with today is just a very simple balance test.
Okay.
Just to see how well you can stand.
I place one foot in front of the other, just like a roadside sobriety test. And they'll measure how much my body is swaying. Can I hold this for 10 seconds? It looks easy. Can I move my arms?
You can move whatever
Yeah?
you can get
Oh,
going.
okay.
You're doing great. 7.
How long was I?
That was 7 seconds.
Then they had me walk in a straight line. But now they want me to list wild animals.
Perfect. All right.
Whooping cranes, grizzly bears, mountain goats, mountain sheep, walrus.
Normally, people can walk and they can talk, and they don't really think about putting the two together.
Right.
But your brain's sort of automatically doing that for you. And as we get older, it gets harder to do that because it's really multitasking. How about politicians?
I hate one another. I'm not a political animal.
Not a political
but
animal.
no.
So let's see how well you do this when you're naming prime ministers of Canada.
Oh my goodness, okay.
All right. You got the
All right.
timer going?
Ready?
All right.
Go.
Justin Trudeau, Pierre Trudeau, Brian Mulroney, Joe Clark, Kim Campbell. So what exactly are they measuring here? The pad I was walking on is lined with sensors that record every detail of my gait.
This software automatically extracts your footsteps and it analyzes your data to figure out your step length and your step velocity and all of the parameters that we're interested in. So when you're just walking without talking, you're doing about 1.05 meters per second. So that's a very good speed for your age, I think.
I wanted to see how my brain stacked up against someone a little younger. This time with me suggesting the list. I want you to name any federal politician.
Justin Trudeau, Andrew Scheer, Jagmeet Singh, Elizabeth May. That's it.
All right.
You slowed, but that was stunning. When you were thinking harder, you slowed right down. Are there any practical things that an individual at home might even practice?
Yeah, I think, what's really interesting for us is the brain is a novelty-seeking device. That's how we think of it. It's just looking for new things all the time. Really what we tell people is anything you can do to challenge yourself, to challenge your way of thinking, the way of seeing the world.
This isn't about living longer.
No. If you live longer, that's great. But what we want you to do is to live longer and live better and live more.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, let's go down and have a look.
I don't yearn to live longer than my lifespan, but I do want to live better by extending my health span.
Got a pretty good spot.
I'll come back to the issue of balance, but first, a little housework with my grandson Rio.
So this is your blueprint, right? This is what you think you want? That's
A true trunk.
a tree trunk. Well, I think I can do that. One of the things I was asked to do for the show was to give up a bucket list of things I'd like to do at this time of my life. So I built tree houses for my daughters, built tree houses for my grandchildren, and I thought, wow, maybe I've still got it to build one more tree house. So if we could just unload it up here.
No problem.
Great.
Sounds good.
Now, when I worked in construction, we would carry 4 or 6 of these at one time. Yeah. So we'll have a window here, a window on the end.
The window there.
Yeah, okay. The last time I worked as a carpenter was 1958. And gosh, I was in great shape back in those days. But the thing I find now is my balance. We used to run across the rafters as if it was nothing, jump across floor joists. Okay. Now I'm like, it's my ankles and knees. But it's still fun.
So to find out more about my balance, or lack of, I've come to the Department of Kinesiology at the University of Waterloo. Just like at Baycrest, they're measuring the pressure exerted by the body while standing still. That's easy. But then they get sneaky. Just when you think it's safe, they pull the carpet out from under you. Oh. Here, it's all about measuring how fast your brain reacts.
Okay, so what's going on here?
We use this platform motion to challenge the balance control system. It's essentially a stress test for the central nervous system and the musculoskeletal system to control balance. We're interested in the reactions.
The one thing that's striking for me as I've gotten older is how my balance has been affected. And I've fallen on my bike a number of times now. So is it just a matter that my nerves are slowing down?
That's one of the most important things we're interested in, the determinants of aging, the slowing of that process in aging. So the slower you are, the more at risk you are for falling.
All right.
My turn to be the fall guy.
Okay.
React naturally as possible.
There you are.
How can I react naturally? I've been all tense.
So you're all tied in?
I am.
And any moment now, the trial will start.
Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa. Whoop. Whoop.
Well done.
So after all of that, how did I do?
You did great.
Really?
Yes, your dynamic balance reactions were really quite good. You had a second follow-up step, a bit of arm reaction, but they are still signs of relatively rapid reactions and good movements to regain stability.
We can't fight the march of time, but are there things that we can do to try to maintain the balance that we do have?
The advice, at least at this point, is to remain active in very specific ways. So you want to continue to challenge your balance control system as you move. The worst thing you can do is if your balance begins to get poor and you notice it and you're fearful and anxious, the worst thing you could do is then be inactive. That then leads to a cycle. That cycle will have your central nervous system and balance control system become less effective, and it just propagates a decline.
You know, there was a time when my balance was pretty near perfect.
The world of science has something for everyone.
I've had my balance tested while multitasking and while standing on a shifting platform. I've come to the Toronto Rehabilitation Institute for a different kind of balance test. My job is to stand perfectly still on a virtual reality street corner. The pressure pad measures my slightest body sway. This test will see if I can stand steady while I'm being distracted.
All right, so in this one, you're going to hear two numbers, and I want you to repeat back the two numbers that you hear.
4 or 6. 1.
This is really tricky. It's like having someone stand on each side of you, and they're both saying a different number at the exact same time.
9. 5.
We think of balance as being largely automatic and not requiring a lot of cognitive resources, but of course it does. And so when you have to manage this challenge of listening and listening with increased effort at the same time as staying balanced, then it can compromise either your ability to listen or your ability to balance. How'd you find it?
Well, I found it not easy when they overlap.
Yeah, it's tricky. So we're gonna do one more.
Okay.
It's to be the same as that last one, but you'll hear 4 numbers instead of 2.
6, 5, 3, 9.
4.
6, 1, 4. I can't get that fourth one. That's interesting.
5, 9.
5, 4, 3, 9.
All right, you're done.
And how did I do there?
You did remarkably well. We saw slight effects to your postural performance as well, but in a very typical pattern. So the fact is that you were able to stand quite still effectively most of the time. You were never at risk of falling or losing your balance.
Good. What that really showed me was this guy sitting up here really plays a key role in things you wouldn't think you had to think about at all to just maneuver down the street, but it plays an important role. That was really an important insight to me.
Up next, I'll give my brain a workout on the pool table. Spoiler alert, don't bet on me to win. But first, here are some folks who have one thing in common.
My goal in life is to shoot my age.
They're all living life to the fullest.
be too bad if it wasn't for the trees.
Daga Israel is a dagaridege, dosa distance is a yote. So the Yodatsari, Zenohoda Weskoni, is a yota, Zinigo the Watkan Hadeni.
I love the sax, but I didn't start playing until I was in my 60s.
Now, remember, I haven't done this for like 50 years, but... Good break.
In Canada, life expectancy for women is 84. For men, it's 80. So I've already exceeded my expiry date by almost 4 years. And I'd like to keep it that way. Stay as healthy as I can for as long as I can, which is why I've come here.
Well, this could be a long game.
They say you have to have two things to win this game, balls and brains. Well, the balls are on the table. And my opponent, Dr. Howard Chertkow, studies the brain.
So there are two things about aging, it seems to me. One is living longer and one is living better. They're different.
Exactly. People really don't want a longer lifespan. They want a longer health span.
Oh!
And the brain is crucial in that, because if your brain deteriorates, even if your body is intact for another 20 years, the quality of life is not what people want.
I know all about the deterioration of the brain. My mother died from Alzheimer's disease. In fact, several years ago, I met Dr. Chertkow to see what my chances were of falling victim to this deadly disease.
What does that say for my prognosis?
8% of the people over age 65 are going to get dementia. With a family history of at least one immediate family, that risk doubles.
Unfortunately, that number hasn't changed in the interim.
Doubles it from 8% of the people over age 65 up to 16%.
The good news is we're getting closer to understanding the risk factors associated with cognitive loss, aging, and dementia.
So we have evidence on things that are risk factors for bad brain aging and cognitive loss, and things that are protective factors we know about. Getting exercise, avoiding obesity, being socially active, being intellectually challenged, flossing and brushing your teeth.
Wait a minute. Did he just say brushing your teeth?
Flossing and brushing your teeth.
What's the mouth got to do with the brain?
So from the mouth to the stomach, all the way down to the other end, you're filled with bacteria. So we think that cavities and plaques sets up some sort of low-level inflammation, and maybe this is affecting the brain. So this is very exciting because maybe this is an area where we can intervene. We change the bacteria in your gut. Maybe it'll have a benefit for the brain.
So why are we in a pool hall?
There are a lot of aspects of memory you can test in a pool hall. I'm going to touch some pool balls, and you touch the same ones right after me. You touch 5. It's not easy. Finally, let's go for 7. Close enough. If you get 7 plus or minus 2, you're within the normal range.
Oh, okay. But is that normal limits for an 83-year-old, which
Absolutely.
I am, or normal for a 40-year-old?
The norms change a bit with age, but certainly this is within normal limits.
It's not just brushing your teeth. There's a lot more you can do to reduce your risk of dementia. Check out our website.
Meet Dr. Norman Lazarus. He's the same age as me, 83.
For a long time, I'd been cycling, and I began to wonder, is it possible that doing all this exercise was somehow affecting my physiology?
So Norman, being an avid cyclist, got together with his colleagues and set about studying the effects of exercise, specifically long-distance cycling and aging. The results were groundbreaking.
Starting at the head, working all the way through, we find that exercise has an effect on every single system. In fact, in all systems, there was a big improvement in what exercise did, and it was protective in the sense that most of these cyclists, nearly all of them, were not getting the diseases which one's associated with getting old. In other words, those so-called aging diseases.
Starting in our 20s, our immune system declines by 2 to 3% every year. That's why older people are more susceptible to infections. The participants in this study had immune systems comparable to 20-somethings.
The biggest surprise was in the immune system, and what we found there was these cells that fight for our immunity were being kept at concentrations which were equal to any young person, and that was one of the major findings of the study.
For this group, cycling goes way beyond the health benefits.
The health benefits come by default in a way. I don't cycle to be fit and healthy. It's really a whole way of life. When I was almost 60, I cycled around the world on my bike with a 10 by myself. But it's my recreation. I can cycle to cafes, do a 40-mile round trip, have coffee and cake, meet men in Lycra, what's not to love.
It's the opportunity to not die early, as in it keeps my heart and lungs pumping, keeps my muscles fresh. I don't want to end up in a home with dementia, unable to do anything, so I think, well, I'll get on my bike and do something.
Like most people, I know that exercise is good for you, and I've known it for years. But when I heard the results of Norman Lazarus' study, basically saying we can slow down the effects of aging, well, you just have to wonder, why are we not all out there doing something? It just seems crazy not to.
I'm with Carl Honore, best-selling author of a book on aging. I'd like to put you through a challenge. Are you up for it?
I love a challenge. Let's do it.
Okay, well, first you have to get dressed.
I'm game.
He may have written a book on aging well, but this man is still relatively young. So we're going to change that. This aging simulation suit will give him a very real sense of the physical frailties that come with age. Goggles, earplugs, and gloves reduce sight, hearing, and touch. But the real killer is the reduction in joint movement and the stoop inflicted by strapping. The suit is designed to be worn by healthcare providers to help create understanding and empathy for the limitations faced by many seniors.
Carefully here. Wow, Carl, yeah. you really do look like an old man.
Yeah, I feel like one.
Uh-huh. They say this adds 30 years to your life. How old are you?
I'm 51.
So you're my age.
I'm...
With the suit on.
I tell you what I'm feeling is that I really don't want to be 81. At least not like this.
Okay, we're going to maneuver stairs. Can you see the stairs?
Yippee. I can see the stairs.
Okay. Now you've got a railing there.
I'm going to get myself set here. Right. Wow. The world just turns into a scary obstacle course.
Yes. Oh my.
Okay.
Just take your time. Yeah. Take your time.
I feel so hobbled.
Wow. That was a dramatic transformation. I'm taking you from a 50-year-old to an 80-year-old. What did it feel like?
It was a shock. It was a real shock. Physically, because my body just felt so impaired in ways that I'd never really even imagined. And then emotionally as well, I felt scared and vulnerable and ashamed and guilty.
Ashamed?
Yeah, I think our society is so enthralled to youth and the vigor and the physical strength of youth. To have that taken away in the blink of an eye it was like being hit by a bus, I gotta say, emotionally and physically.
I have never seen anything as dramatic as the conversion of this tall, good-looking guy as he got into the suit, being literally reduced to this old man by the straps that pulled his body forward. That to me was stunning.
And impaired.
Just to be clear, the age simulation suit projects a worst-case scenario. In fact, Carl Honore believes we are in a golden age of aging.
Clearly, we're living better for longer than ever before. Science is coming up with new ways all the time to deal with the impairments that come with aging, physical and cognitive. And then the demographic shift. You know, the world is getting older every day, especially when so many of them are taking life by the scruff of the neck.
I'm the oldest female curler in the world.
Dress up every day. I guarantee you, you feel younger all your life.
Young or old, the one thing that never goes out of fashion is style.
I always started dancing when I was 50. You have to keep active in life to stay loose.
Study after study indicates that there are numerous upsides to aging.
Did you get 2 of them?
We elders have more free time to explore the world and to try new things.
Hey, good. Well done.
We're wiser, and we tend to be more optimistic. For the most part, we're a happy bunch, much to Carl Honoré's surprise.
I had an idea, and I think culturally we all do, that growing older is somehow sad. But in fact, the truth is that science shows very clearly that human beings tend to follow what's called a U-shaped happiness curve, starting out high in childhood, bottoming out in middle age, and then jumping back up again in later life. And in fact, in Canada and across much of the planet, the age group that reports the highest levels of happiness and life satisfaction are the over 55s, which runs completely counter to the narrative that we've all swallowed, which is that it's all downhill from 40.
I want to do some science.
Okay, but just get me the level, please. Okie doke.
When I was a kid, one of the golden rules in the family was respect your elders. Not sure if that's the case today, but one thing I do know is when it comes to the treatment of elders, our indigenous communities have got it right.
This is solid. Elders are like rock stars. You know, an elder comes to the door, young ones run up and say, Grandma, Granddad, or Auntie, and they take their arm, lead them to the best seats in the house. They always open the event with a prayer. They get the first servings of meals. Elders have a real importance in Indigenous communities. I think we can learn a lot from that.
Next up, an earful, an eyeful, and a bellyful. Oh my. As I continue my quest to discover how to age well, I already know that my hearing has deteriorated over the years. I'd like to know how far it's gone, and if it's time to consider getting a hearing aid.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
So you're going to be hearing some tones, and I'm measuring the softest tones that you can hear. Every time you hear one, I'd like you to raise your hand to let me know, even if it's very, very soft.
So what have you found?
In the realms of what we'd call a mild hearing loss.
Well, that's disappointing, but not exactly surprising.
I think I did the damage when I was in my late teens and early 20s when I was working in construction. And, you know, this is back in the 1950s.
Right.
And don't look at And we didn't pay any attention to hearing. So I often thought, gee, you know, that should repair itself, but
It doesn't. If you keep doing it again and again and again, it's cumulative. So it will get to the point where those little hair cells don't recover.
So how loud is too loud?
Well, the industry standard is more than 85 decibels for an 8-hour period. And if it's a shorter time, the sound can be louder and vice versa.
Time for a sound check. And of course, there's an app for that. Me whispering, 21 decibels. 59. 107. 114. Really? If there was one thing, one invention I could eliminate, I think, forget about nuclear bombs. Everybody wants to get rid of that. For me, it would be those damned leaf blowers. You know, that's another thing about getting old. You can say whatever you want. You don't have to stay on script.
You know when you apply for a Freedom of Information report and it comes back redacted?
Yeah.
And all these, that's what I feel my hearing is kind of redacted. Certain words.
That's such a good way of putting it, because you're kind of borderline and you do have mild loss in the high frequencies. I would encourage you to try hearing aids.
Hearing aids have come a long way. They're virtually invisible now. And yes, I will start wearing them. But apparently there are lots of people who could benefit from them who simply don't. And you won't believe why.
I can tell you that I have many patients over 90 that are still worried about what they're going to look like when they wear their hearing aids.
I mean, God damn, when do you stop worrying about how you look? Anyway, I just think that's the dumbest reason not to wear a hearing aid. Bloody tree.
Hey, Dad, we're just gonna be in the backyard, okay?
Okay. When we were nailing, say, nailing the sheeting on a roof, we would take a handful of 2.5-inch nails, and then as I was nailing, I would, with this finger here, I would flip the next nail. If the point was up, I would flip it as I'm hammering like this, and bang, in it goes. Look at my fingers. You think I could hold a bunch of nails? I'm dropping them all the time. Those are things that you have to deal with. I mean, with arthritis, it's the reality. But I'm able to bang. I'll pay for it tomorrow. The kids will love it, but it's a nuisance for me. Getting in and out. I've worn glasses since I was a dorky teenager. They used to call me Four Eyes. My eyesight has grown steadily worse over time. ALVCESB. Not a prayer.
Not a prayer. All right, thank you.
And I've always thought of it as a natural process of aging. But I've come to the University of Montreal School of Optometry to see what I can see. Do I have 20/20?
So it turns out you do. And so you'll see here at age 80, you are above average. Hey. There you go. All right, there you go.
Always glad to hear that.
Next door, Professor Eddie Bitton is trying to capture a close-up shot of the lipid portion of a tear film. The lipid is the oil.
So let's look at her right eye here. So as you could see right here, there's not a lot of color. Her number is about 39. We prefer for it to be 80 or more. So she's got about half or so
Christine.
of her lipid layer. So it'll evaporate very quickly. She doesn't have a lot of oil.
When we blink, we pump the glands under our eyelids which produce oil. So blinking is a good thing. But when we use digital devices, computers and phones in particular, we tend to be concentrating on the screen and consequently blink less. Not good.
So let's take a look at the right eye first. So what you see is just lots of color. So just like on a driveway, you see lots of oil on water. And now we can take a look at the actual scale and be able to see a number.
Wow.
And you are over 100. Way to go. Nice job. Nice job. So here your glands are working really well for you.
It's official. My tears are better than that of a 20-something woman. So if you're watching this online, remember to blink occasionally. Now, before I go, one more scan.
So I'm going to scan the macula. We have different receptors in the eye, rods and cones. This is where all the color vision is, and the best vision is at the macula. So we want to preserve this area as long as possible.
Okay.
So I'll have
Before this technology, the only way to examine the macula was to look directly into the eye. This apparatus scans the eye and maps a 3D image that can be analyzed and stored for later comparison.
Let's take a look
And
at
macular degeneration is a very common result of aging.
This is correct. This does come in with age, and it's deposits that are around the macula but cause changes in the macula. And because the macula is the most sensitive part of the retina, any alterations will affect vision.
So how do I look for an old man?
Your macula looks pretty good. And one way to keep it that way is to, of course, not smoke and keep a good nutrition, use UV protection when you're outside, All these things are connected. Your general health will affect, of course, what's happening in the eye.
I was the oldest blood donor in Canada, then they cut me off.
Retire. Retire for what? This is not work. I love this business.
Life is a journey, and I really look forward to what's going to happen next.
I will never be as ripped as Peter Nickel, but I want to see how I look on the inside. So I'm back at the University of Waterloo for a scan to see how fat I am.
I'm going to start the scan now.
DEXA, or dual energy X-ray absorptiometry, is a cool way to see what's happening under the skin. This machine emits low-dose X-rays at 2 different energy levels. The energy absorbed can differentiate between my fat tissue and bone.
So what do we see then?
We see that your total percent body fat is around 21.6%, which for a male of your age is in the healthy range.
Really? Yes.
Just to be clear, not all fat is bad. It just depends on where it is.
And as you can see here, you have about 29.7% fat in the belly region. So that indicates increased risk of cardiovascular disease or diabetes. Now, the range that you have here isn't super high, so
I'm not obese. I like to say cuddly, I like to tell my wife.
There's a good one. The good news is your results show that you have 9.4 kilograms of lean tissue in your arms and legs relative to your height. And what we consider a good range is anything above 7.26.
All right.
So you're doing great.
Thank you.
I was disappointed in the DEXA readout because not that long ago I was, yep, that's me all right. No Photoshop here. I think I'll add an extra 5 minutes to my gym schedule to help me get back in shape. Up next, I'll see if I'm fit enough to drive.
Holy cow.
But first,
I gotta go. At my age, there's very little time between signal and action. One of the downsides of aging. I'll be right back.
When it comes to getting from A to B, my preference is walking, cycling, or a bus. And while I find myself driving less and less these days, I'm not quite ready to give up the keys to my car. For a lot of people, that decision can be devastating, a loss of independence that can leave one isolated. I know that at some point down the road, I will have to make that life-changing decision. In the meantime, I'm back at the Toronto Rehabilitation Institute to see if I have the mental capacity to be a safe driver right now.
And so your task is to judge whether you can drive between the parked cars or if you have to drive around the parked vehicles. Okay?
Well, that sounds easy. Here we go.
Getting close to making that decision.
Holy cow.
And you can bring the car to a stop at this point. Yep.
Yikes.
You okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's can be a bit close.
I realized there was a fence or a barrier there.
Oh, okay. No, that's okay.
And you want me to get up to about 80?
Yeah, if you could maintain at around 80 the whole time, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe not as easy as I thought, but I have 8 more attempts.
Okay, now he's getting up to speed, so that's great. Now it's coming up to the point where it's almost decision time.
Yikes.
So he's going to go through the cars.
All right, and he's done.
What we'll do now is when I press ready on this tablet, you're going to see 4 images appear. So I ask that you choose the image that you think you saw on that last trial as fast as you can. Okay, great.
Something tells me this is not just about driving through the parked cars.
So what we tested you on today is something that we sometimes refer to as inattentional blindness. If you're occupied, you're sometimes blind, or you look but don't see those other things in your environment that could become urgently relevant at any moment. And so what we found with your performance is that you did very well, but when we asked you afterwards, we're completely unaware of the pedestrians that were standing at the side of the road, and you weren't able to identify them later.
Until the final test, the instructor said, "Did you see that person standing in the bus shelter?" I thought, what? And sure enough, I'm driving down, there's that person. When you're focused on things or distracted, you don't see a lot of the things that are going around. It was very scary. And just for the record, I didn't flunk the test. I'm still good to drive, for now. You know, there's one element to aging well that can't be measured. You just have to have it and embrace it.
In Japanese culture, there's the term ikigai, which is the notion of having a purpose or a meaning in your life, something that you get up in the morning and you feel fire in your belly, that you want to take the day by the scruff of the neck. And that seems to be one of the keys to living well and aging well, is having something that lights you up.
For me, my ikigai, the fire in my belly that drives me on, is the never-ending battle to make this wonderful planet a rich, safe place for our grandchildren. So I'm not expecting to quit anytime soon. How about you?
I just get up every morning. I never sleep in because I'm looking forward to the day.
Do not sit in the rocking chair. Get out, follow your passion, whatever it is.
Don't just sit around like an old person. Get your hobby going again.
I don't like looking back. I hate looking back. I don't even like looking at old pictures, but I like looking forward.
Okay, now we're gonna see it for the first time, yeah. Ta-da, what do you think? There's your ladder. You know, the ladder won't hold me, I'm too heavy. In a way, it's my, you think you can get up on it? Legacy to my grandchildren, that when they play in it and enjoy it, they'll think of me.
I'm happy to say I finished the treehouse. And for a guy my age, I'm in reasonable condition. Well, apart from the arthritis and my hearing. And did I mention my wobbly knees?
Not easy. Look what Mommy got us. Hey, not a bad payoff. Here we are, drinking our tea for the first time in the treehouse.
When I look back on how I've aged over the last 80+ years, I realized there are some things I got right, like exercise and eating well, and a few things I certainly could have done better, like protecting my ears when I worked in construction. But one thing I have learned is that you're never too young or too old to start the process of extending your health span.
Be active. There's no point in being a couch potato.
I could retire, but I like to do something. Doing that nothing, you don't feel good.
I keep working, I keep active, and I eat healthy, I take care of myself.
I don't consider age. It's just a number.